start with a prayer of gratitude, and then we'll follow with a 1-minute recap of what's energy healing, and then we'll dive into today's session. Thank you to the source of creation, the mother of the universe. Thank you for being this live webinar and everything. Thank you to the aspects of the mother of creation, which are also aspects of our own self, which are responsible for healing. Thank you to everyone. And as I'm saying this, I'm looking out into the field of our collective today. Thank you to everyone's healing team. We can call it the healing team. It's really the self. But that's waking up. It's the first part of our prayer unfolds so that everyone has a flow of healing energy moving throughout the entire webinar. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Okay, and then thank you to the ancestors for their loving support, for their presence. Thank you to the divine in all of us. Thank you for the ability to work really powerfully and in a very coherent and integrated manner, and of course addressing everyone's concerns in the highest and best possible way. And that's also happening. I'm just feeling through the group here. Very nice. Off to a good start. Finally, always offering my resources to all of you, that everyone may have mastery over the energy healing process. And of course, deepest heartfelt gratitude to the eternal tradition of wisdom. Thank you for being with me today. All right. Recap of what is energy healing. Energy healing is the ability to focus attention intelligently in order to support specific healing effects in the physiology. Today, we're going to be taking some questions and answers. And I see, I'm going to try to go back and forth between people who emailed questions in ahead of time. That was a really quick recap, wasn't it? That's okay. Well, we'll keep picking it up as we go along. It was like a 5-word recap of what is energy healing. I think that sums it up right there. Anyway, I think it'll unfold as we go along, because I want to get to this first question. I'd like to go back and forth between answering questions that people emailed in, questions that are coming up right here live as I'm talking, and questions that are being offered in live from people that are here with me today. So I think I'm going to go ahead and start with this question that just came in from Scotland. And that is that this lady's saying that she feels that she's about to get another infection. And she's been having infections for, like, I'm reading down, it looks like at least a month. Different infections for months, plural. And she just got over the flu and then the cold, and now here's another infection coming up. And it's just so frustrating to be, as soon as one heals, another one comes up. And she's been using the technologies that I've been offering, but that it's still like one heals and then another one comes up. So my experience with this, and I've had this experience where it's not just one infection after another, but as soon as the infection is gone, then I would sprain an ankle. And then when the ankle cleared up, something else would happen that would take me out for the count, so it was just one thing after another for about a year. I went through that. And what happens when that goes on is that each one of those effects is a byproduct of a larger problem. And the larger problem inevitably has to do with feeling exploited. That's the bottom line, feeling exploited. So what we're going to do is we're going to clear the energy of exploitation. And that energy of exploitation seems to be sitting from looks like the first or second ray of the causal body up through, and that's like the denser level of like each of the different layers of the physiology has its own range, right? So like the denser range of the causal body up through the physical body. So right there, we're just putting attention on that level of everybody's physiology, because none of us need to be exploited, right? All of it. It's good for everyone to be in their wholeness, set clear boundaries, and feel safe in life. And it's clearing, and it's clearing. And underneath that, I'm seeing clearing past life impressions of other experiences of exploitation, and also being scapegoated. So that's clearing. Under that, clearing some energy in the third chakra, having to do with leak. And that's where we actually left off last night's healing session, was we were clearing energy leaks in the body. So, and for this particular lady, especially third, second, first chakra areas, clearing it, clearing all these little places like lesions or doorways where it's easy for people to, or even not just people, it's easy for the environment to kind of leach energy off of the physiology. And it's not like the environment's bad or other people are bad. It's just that this is the nature of the creation that we live in, that it's really a field of energy, force of energy and consciousness. And it's constantly, it's constantly rearranging. The energy is constantly rearranging. And some people are like energy producers, more on the end of focusing their attention and creating good energy, and other areas of the creation are like lower energy, and so that where there's more energy, it goes to where there's less energy. Yes. So we're clearing that. And that also goes for infections. Infections are a form of exploitation of the physiology, right? So it's their nature to come into the human form and extract whatever value, whatever life force is there. So boundaries are being set up, healthy boundaries, organizing from this first ray of the causal up through the physical to open up wherever the boundaries need to be placed in order to self-protect. And underneath that is a long old habit of feeling, we're again, like yesterday, clearing some more fear from the third chakra area, first, second, and third chakra areas, of being outcast or rejected. Like, oh, well, if I'm not constantly giving all the time, then I'm gonna like not be loved, and people won't want to be my friend, and I won't be able to engage. And that's just not true. That's just not true. And yeah, maybe you will lose some friends. Maybe you won't have the same friends that you had before, because maybe you need to let go of the friends who are willing to exploit you. So that's clearing. And that's okay. And that can be really, really hard to let go of people that we've been hanging out with for a long time. But it's a big world, and there are a lot of beautiful, really good, sweet, giving, nurturing people in the world. And we don't have to just hang out with people who are attracted to leeching energy. That's a download coming in. All that fear is having to clear from the whole abdominal area. And it's still clearing. It feels like it's clearing out into the collective. So many times people act based on what they feel the expectations of others are. So clearing expectations. And that is a two-way. Sometimes we have expectations, sometimes others have expectations on us. So the expectations and underneath that judgments and assumptions are all clearing. Mostly, and they're clearing along with subtle structures that are kind of like glue, kind of holding them in place in dimensions, in various dimensions. So dimensions are clearing. Very nice flow of energy as well. We've got a big purification happening this morning, all the way through the system, starting off with a bang. Good job, everybody. Compassion comes in. Compassion, understanding, tolerance. Tolerance is very important. Patience and tolerance are coming in to establish in those areas. And what this means is you may have to be more patient and tolerant with yourself, and move through a transition. This particular healing is very likely to result in a transition which makes things different at the surface level of life. And that's okay. But sometimes to go through that kind of transition requires this patience. And know that we're turning the big ship around. And that was actually a little recap point from last night, was that the way energy healing works is quite different from the way Western medicine works. Western medicine can be almost a little bit invasive itself. It comes right in fast and they'll cut, or they'll come in with some drug that you take the drug in the body and within seconds, or minutes at least, the body has been overtaken by some chemical pharmaceutical. And so energy healing has a more graceful flow to it than that. It's definitely less invasive. Sometimes instant healings can come up, and that's going to bring me to another question that I wanted to look at the off. And this question is, I thought it was said in a recent webinar that energy healing can heal anything, including broken bones. And why could it not heal some inflammation that he was experiencing as I change my habits? So the question is, can energy healing heal every single ailment? What can it not heal? And what is its limits, if any? Great question. So the answer is that energy healing is a function of consciousness. Consciousness folding in on itself. And consciousness is a field of all possibilities. So in my opinion, there's nothing that energy healing can't heal. However, it's like peeling the layers off of an onion. In energy healing, we go in and we peel off the first layers. Then underneath that, there's some more layers. We peel those, just like in that last healing. It started out with this lady having an infection, but then we go down and we find, well, underneath that, something else, and underneath that, past lives, and underneath that, beliefs, and so forth and so on. So, or judgments and expectations. So, we have to peel down to the core of the onion, basically, and that does take a little bit of time. My experience has been that if I go in and do healing on something and I don't get relief, that it just means that I haven't spent enough time with it. And that if I spend enough time, eventually I do get to the core. And once the core is taken out, once the illness is taken out from its core, it's gone. And it's been, even though it can take sometimes a long time to get to the core of an illness, that once the core comes, the healing is actually quite fast. It can be instant, actually. I also had an infection like this lady in Scotland is referring to, and I had tried all the usual remedies, and it was a month I was on that infection, and it was a terrible, terrible infection. And at one point I was working with a dear friend of mine who's a monk. I'm sure you've heard me refer to my friend Nick, and he cleared 5 bridges to a past life that had some issues in that area. Within seconds, it was done. It was just gone. And I was like, seriously? It was that easy? Oh my gosh. But we had been working for a long time before we got to that point where we dissolved those 5 bridges to the past life. So looking for bridges for people too, because a lot of times what happens is the past life, that's another place where energy can leak out and where the immune system can be weakened, is that the past lives are suffering. And even though we think of them, well, that's the past and I'm here, and so it doesn't affect me, unfortunately, the reality is that everything that we've ever done and everything we ever will do affects us right now. So, because all of time is kind of compactified, it's all a wholeness. Time is a wholeness at the subtle levels of creation, and the body knows that. So we're looking into past lives, and we're looking for any places where bridges can be dissolved for people. Bridges where there was suffering. And it's like having a member of your family or a part of yourself. It's like having a part of the body that's suffering. Some part of the body is suffering. And so when one part of the body is suffering, the rest of the body can't be happy. So if there's a past life where there's really a lot of suffering, sometimes it'll draw bridges to other incarnations, like this present incarnation where you're feeling strong and you have lots of energy. And again, where there's more energy, it wants to go to where there's less energy. So what we do is we go address that. We address whatever's the concern of the past life. And in this case, this issue of wanting to be accepted and wanting to be part of the group and wanting to be all right and being willing to self-sacrifice for the sake of that. And that means abusing one's own trust, right? Because if I'm willing to self-sacrifice myself in order to be part of the group, then I don't trust myself. I'm unable to trust that I'm going to put boundaries where I need to put them. So that, thank you, that is happening. And then as that happens, all those bridges can dissolve. Many, how many times have we seen someone make a fool of themselves so they can fit in with the group? Oh, it hurts to see someone I know, it hurts to see someone else do it, right? Even if it's not one's own self. Man. Underneath that, there's a lot of, I'm feeling a kind of a catharsis, a cathartic experience occurring for everyone, and just letting go and letting go and letting go and letting go. That feeling of not being acceptable or not being sufficient or not being accepted or whatever, and realizing that what we're doing in this healing is, as that all those discordant feelings are washing out of the system, is establishment of total acceptance within the field of one's own divinity. Complete, total acceptance. You are free and you are not bound by other people. So good, we've been getting some good healing done. Maybe this is a good time to move on to another question. We did one from here, and then I did one down here. I just want to make sure I covered this question. The question is from Scottsdale. Can energy healing heal every single ailment? And as I said, in my opinion, ultimately it can, but it doesn't always do it immediately. And that's, as I was saying before, is the difference between Western medicine and this energy healing, is that Western medicine has its antidotes, but they come in and they tend to be work pretty quickly and intensely on the body, but they also have side effects, and they're also invasive, and they don't always work, or sometimes they create a bigger problem than they solved, things like that. So, everything has its downside, right? I mean, God bless Western medicine for all it's helped. But what can energy healing not heal? Energy healing, my experience is that energy healing cannot heal if a person is absolutely committed to not healing. If they are absolutely committed, they can absolutely make sure that they don't heal. So, but I don't think that goes for any of you guys. What are the limits? What are the limits? So that's the main limit. The other thing is, I think some things can take so long to heal that it's possible that it seems as if the energy healing isn't really doing anything because it just took so long. And that's definitely happened. I've had people come to me when they're at the end of their lives, and they're really very advanced, the cancer's in 4th stage cancer, and it's very, very advanced. And at that point, to turn around a lifelong habit of being unloving towards oneself is very difficult. So, there are definitely cases like that. However, sometimes death is also a healing. So we can't knock it. Okay. Okay, so here's a question from a local question from our group right here. Another healer told me that grounding is the basis of healing. Whenever there's a problem, connect to the ground. Connecting to the ground is like connecting to Mother Nature, the source of creation, all the intelligence. This seems, in your language, is connecting to silence. Does this make sense? So, the source of creation is present everywhere. It's present in the ground. It's present in that point of balance between negativity and positivity. And one of the little elaboration on this is this other healer said, if you connect to the ground, then that opens up the channel at the top of the head for the light of creation to come in also. Because the energy of Mother Earth is also cosmic energy. Mother Earth is part of the cosmic community, right? So the life force in our Earth is part of the life force in the rest of the universe. And as we kind of give homage to the Earth, when you connect to the Earth, what are we connecting? We're connecting our consciousness, our awareness to the Earth, right? And with that flows all gratitude and appreciation to our beautiful Earth for her role. And it has a nourishing effect on that cosmic energy. And as the cosmic energy is nourished, it's naturally attracted into the node. We're the node. So there are many ways. There are many ways to reach wholeness. There are many ways to reach totality. And connecting to the Earth is absolutely one of them. And finding your point of balance where you're not gripped by negativity and you're not overwhelmed by positivity, but you can maintain a point of witnessing both, allowing consciousness to expand and embrace the entire vision of creation. I would say all these technologies are less about the actual exercise itself and more about the way we approach the exercise and the level of consciousness that we start out with and where we're going in our evolutionary trajectory. So gratitude, and I don't have to say a lot about that because I know you guys are just seeping in that. You've been in that for so long, but gratitude, using your gratitude and love when finding points of balance is essential to support the ability to activate the full potential of that relationship, because it's a relationship. Whenever we decide consciously to put our attention somewhere, we are reaching out and establishing a relationship. So again, in relationships, we're coming back. This is like a theme for some reason. This whole thing of not being exploited and setting healthy boundaries, that in a relationship, if we've established our own healthy boundaries so we know what we're able and willing to give and what we're not, then when a relationship is established, it becomes a relationship that's life-supporting on all sides. So right there, that we're going deeper into it. I feel as if everyone's receiving a download about that, because here's the thing, and this is a point from yesterday. If the rules for living and the rules for energy healing were consistent, life would be super easy, right? Like people who just when they're young, they say, well, I'm just going to go off and live in a cloister. I'm going to go off and live in a monastery and just stay there, and that's going to be my deal. Well, that's really easy, because when you go and live, or an ascetic, like a sannyasi, whose path to enlightenment is renunciation, it's very simple. Just let go of everything. One rule. All you have to do is follow that rule and you are good to go. But the thing about being a householder, and the thing about the larger portion of society, and most of us have chosen lives that aren't that simple. It's not our karma to just be like live in a cave and not worry about anything. Those rules change as the evolution continues to go, as we change and evolve. What happens is the rules change too. So we have to keep up with a continuously evolving set of rules. So it makes life a little bit more tricky. Anyway, I'm going to go to the next question. I hope I answered the question about grounding sufficiently. We may come back and answer others, because there's actually another. Oh, thank you, dears. There's actually another question right here about grounding. So let's just do both of them at the same time, shall we? As long as we're on that topic. Connecting to the ground. We have soul, S-O-L-E, or soul, S-O-U-L, chakras, like palm chakras. May we have a healing for our feet chakras. Beautiful. And what I think we should do in this healing is, thank you for that question. We should do the healing for the hands and the feet. And then what I'm seeing is, as I'm putting attention on hands and feet chakras, is I'm also seeing an awakening of the three Mahamarmas, head, heart, and gut areas of the physiology. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 hands and feet. And I'm just innocently looking at those chakras in everybody and making sure that two things: A, there aren't any leaks. We've already covered that, but just double checking that. And B, everything's open and the energy is able to flow without resistance. So it's kind of like a double value. You've got openness and flow, but at the same time, no leaking. Healthy boundaries. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Another question is just coming in about right and left palms. And the question is that someone said that the energy goes in the left hand and out the right hand for healing. And someone else said, well, that's for women, but for men it's reversed. And my experience with it is, generally my experience is that's what happens. Whoa. But it's getting exciting over here. But I feel that the human body is like an instrument. And just because when you take classical trombone lessons, they say this is first position, second position, third position, doesn't mean that you can't play ragas on your trombone and do half and quarter positions. You can do anything. So same thing here, that the hand and feet chakras, you can move the energy in any direction, either direction, in or out. And it's good to be able to do that. We want to master the ability to use the instrument in a completely frictionless, effortless, unbounded way. I'm feeling the energy in the palms. I'm feeling the energy in the feet. And what we're doing is we're practicing moving the energy in and out, both sides. Out on one side, in on the other, and then reverse. Do it one way, do it the other way. We can reverse it if we need to. Going to the feet. And what I'm feeling happening in the feet is that all the healing potential, all the healing team, your healing structure is going and placing the awareness on the feet, like the hand chakras, placing on the feet. And then for some people, there's a lot of discordant feelings mixed with resistance. So we're clearing the resistance and clearing more fear, more like a tendency to recoil. So clearing that tendency to recoil and allowing the move forward. Feet generally are our instruments for moving forward. And if there are blockages, particularly internal blockages for moving forward in life, the feet get it. The feet end up being the ones who complain about that, who tell you something's wrong. And also in here with the feet, I'm seeing very interesting, looks like Earth Deva energy is associated with this healing for the feet. So there's some communication between Earth and the lovely Devic intelligence of Earth and the feet. And I feel as if this is interesting, like our feet are getting downloads. I didn't know you could get a download into just a single organ like that. But it's lovely. There's a nice, I feel this download includes, among other things, a history of the Earth, history of the relationship between human physiology and Earth, and how for so many centuries humans walked barefoot on the Earth. And there's a degree of association between this history and particular realms of creation, which we think of as having magic in them. Some of the more slightly on the side of more heavenly realms, very creative realms. As you go from the darker, more sinister realms up to the, like, I guess I'm supposed to do it opposite for you guys, darker, more sinister realms up to the more heavenly realms like that. In the heavenly realm area, there are areas where, there are places where every being that's existing in that space is extremely creative and extremely outpouring. a flow of intelligence and creativity. So in these areas, there is a resonant harmony between the energy frequency in that area and what we get in our feet from walking barefoot. But also we're getting in our feet now because as modern people, we tend to wear shoes and it's cold outside and so forth. So we can get the value of that energy frequency in the feet even just direct from the field of consciousness. And that's very nice because that's going to also support for all of us, remembering that we can always fall back into the principle of using creativity to move energies forward, to create, rather than just problem solving. Beautiful. Thank you. Okay, so let's see. Those were questions here. So I'm not going to go back to questions that are coming in on the live chat or the live feed here. So would it be a good idea to go through a past life regression in order to then heal? Would it make healing easier and quicker? Great question. Sometimes, yes. So my experience is that the aspect of self that we think of in terms of past life, it's the time it curls up. It curls up like spirals up in itself. And so there's a part of the physiology which sits in the causal level of self, and it is like a big spiral of all the memories and all the resources of self-expression through time. And it looks a lot like a multidimensional snowflake in that there's a center portion, which is you now. And then there are all these like spikes or streams of consciousness that come out from the present moment. And these streams of consciousness have other streams that come off of them, a lot like a snowflake. And so at the nodes of this structure are lifetimes which are more significant for this particular lifetime than lifetimes that sit along that matrix that are not sitting at nodes. So when the life ends and the whole system recreates a new life, it's like the whole snowflake moves over a notch. And as the snowflake moves over a notch, some of those threads remain still aligned with the same past lives they were in the previous life, and some of them realign with new lifetimes. Or not new lifetimes, but lifetimes of significance. Gosh, does that make sense? I hope I said that clearly enough. Anyway, what happens in healing is very often, and this is where energy healing's, I think, its greatest strength, is that we find the source of imbalance very often in places that aren't looked at through the Western methods. And I'm not balking at Western medicine because of this. Western medicine does what it does very, very well. It's just that if you go to the doctor won't say, oh, well, you know, I see in a past life you had a bad infection, you died of a bad infection. We need to go do some healing for that past life. It doesn't happen. But in energy healing, we absolutely can do that. And my experience is that all the different periods in history, all the different epochs in history have their own sort of energy flavor, if that makes sense. Like we think of ancient Egypt, there's a very distinct feeling associated with ancient Egypt as compared to ancient Greece, for example, or the Dark Ages of Europe have a very specific feel to them. So what I found is that if I'm looking into an illness and the physiology and I get a flavor of one of those past epochs, then I know there's a past life. Or the other thing that can happen is we'll look at the physiology and there'll be an imbalance in the physiology that's kind of a small-ish imbalance, maybe like Our Lady who had the infection. Like each infection is kind of just a, you know, it shouldn't be a big, oh, I've just got a cold. You know, it shouldn't be a big deal. But somehow behind it, when I look into the physiology, I see something bigger, like the same thing only elaborated. Then we know there was a past incarnation, there was a past physiology that was experiencing the same thing, only in a much more elaborated form. And a lot of times it's easier to heal some little complaint or little problem by going back and healing the larger elaborated form of it, because the larger elaborated form is easier to work with. It's easier to see. It's not so elusive. It's not so elusive. What I'd like to do right now is I'd like to do a healing for everybody in the group to gain direct access to their own past life archive of the past life. So I'm actually feeling warmth, a little bit of warmth coming into the causal body. And the warmth is it's like a flag, like a little red flag up or something. It's like a marker. The warmth is like a marker that's showing where that spot is, where the past lives can be accessed. Again, the understanding of it, and this harkens back to yesterday's session, a lot of our sensitivity to our deep inner reality comes from the gut mahamarma. So that's the area of the body, that's the brain, your second brain in your gut that's activating right now to really understand the experience of accessing the past life archive. There are mental techniques for this too, but I'll let you guys find those on your own. Or if you're really curious, you can email me in and I'll send you a link. But I'm doing my best to keep my boundaries clear, right? I'm not teaching certain kinds of mental techniques. It's okay. We're just doing energy healing. We're feeling the awareness going deep, deep into the gut. And there, the stories, the gut is able to unravel the stories. It's able to unpack the stories of all these past realities, past incarnations, past physiologies. And as that's happening, for some of them, gosh, for a lot of people, we've lived many lifetimes as people, we felt like we weren't super important. I'm feeling that a lot of people felt like they just weren't really important. Simple. The life was simple, that there was some basic lesson that was being learned, and then the rest of the details were not of tremendous significance, and so it was felt not significant. And so we're clearing that feeling of not significant because everyone is an antenna of the absolute, and the absolute absolutely needs us to be the antenna. And what happens as the antenna of the absolute is of cosmic proportions, of cosmic import. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. So I'm feeling a lot of nice energy starting to move, communication channels opening. The gut and the head and the heart can all talk to each other. And that's the healing that we did earlier when we were doing hands and feet, remember? So that's open so that as whatever information we gather from the gut can also be communicated up through to the conscious mind. And as you need it, watch for those signs of the feelings or flavors of different epochs in human history, or if you're looking at an illness and you see that somehow behind it there's a more elaborated form. Those are the two best ways that I know to find it. Thank you for the question. Great question. Okay, here's another one, this one from Europe. According to the classical Ayurvedic texts, there are 107 major marma points on the surface of the body. They are said to be the junction points between matter and consciousness and connect with all the subtle levels of the physiology that you mentioned. Beautiful. They are also said to contain different devatas, or principles of cosmic intelligence. Well, this person writes beautifully, don't they? Within them, cosmic intelligence within them. Please, could you say something about the marmas in relation to energy healing that you do? Thank you so much, with love and gratitude. Thank you for the beautifully worded question. So in the body and also outside the body, in the entire web of creation, every place where those lines or junctions of the flow of consciousness cross each other, we get these nodes. And the nodes are where the dark and light energies intersect to produce the energy that gives rise to the manifested self. So the principle here is that these nodes of creation are everywhere, everywhere. Eyes, ears, nose, everywhere. And as such, the principle is balance. And we can bring in with that, because of that wonderful question earlier, grounding as well. Balance and grounding, because there is a sense of security that comes from our connection to the earth. Nobody likes to fall down. That's not fun. So we need to keep that, the energy of being stable and solid and grounded is extremely similar to the feeling of being balanced, right? They're like almost two different ways of saying the same thing. So we're going to connect that right now. We're connecting through the earth chakras of the physiology, earth chakras 1 through 6. And we're making sure that and these are also would be marma points. Those chakras are marma points also. And what we're doing is I'm just checking for everyone that it's stable. The energy is very stable in those points of balance and grounding. And I'm putting my attention to do it. But what happens is I put my attention and heaven comes in, divinity comes in, and then your healing potential, your devatas, your angels, your healing team, your structure of self which heals you comes in and does the work. This is also going to be very good for people that were having the infections too. And I'm feeling a kind of releasing at the same time. There seems to be a releasing in those, a purification running through those earth chakras as well. And I'm looking for the flavor of what's releasing in those earth chakras so I can describe it to you. And there's one of the qualities that I'm seeing there was a feeling of giving up, but I also feel as if there's a kind of a simplicity that reminds me of the nature of life experience in previous incarnations. So for some people, we've also got past life stuff, and it's not a coincidence that we were just talking about that, and then we were led to do this healing that would address past life issues. It's perfect. Thank you, you guys are amazing. So looking at those past life issues in the earth chakras. And yes, and for a lot of people, this is related to experiences of leaving the body during catastrophes such as earthquakes or volcanoes or extreme weather conditions. For a lot of people, there's the energy that I'm feeling in those earth chakras has to do with both intense bliss and intense discomfort at the same time. So what we're doing is we're looking at the earth chakras and we're finding the balance point. Because when we've got intense bliss and intense discord at the same time, then we know that's the algorithm, right? We go to the balance. So right there. And what happens is when we go to the point of balance is it allows the bliss aspect that's in those chakras to maximize, and it supports wholeness established. Because the negativity, if the negativity wasn't there, the positivity wouldn't get a chance to shine in its glory. We wouldn't even understand it. We wouldn't comprehend it. And this is tying into the Davic realms of creation, where the beings are drenched in light at all times. It's a lovely place, but the problem is that there's not a lot of rest and there's not a lot of evolution. Interesting. That in the realms of creation where we think of are residing the angels and the devas, and so there's so much bliss and there's so much outpouring of light that moving forward doesn't happen that much. The transformation value comes more in the human realm. So we're offering the blessings and the value of this transformation that we're undergoing right now, and that many of us are tied in very nicely and neatly with our past incarnations, have been going through these transformations. So we've got a big story, an overarching story of transformation is being offered like a gift, like a download for the divine beings. They've been giving us a lot of downloads, right? It's about time we gave them downloads. Our healing circle, you guys, we are powerful. This is what we're doing. We're supporting it. We're supporting the healing for the whole creation. Of course it makes sense. Of course it makes sense that as humans, we can't move on to the next higher levels and higher levels if the beings at those levels aren't also moving on to their higher levels. And so I'm feeling a beautiful wave of softness coming from the cosmic, the celestial realms of creation. Beautiful. And it's flowing with grace. Did you see my camera slowed down? It glitched right there when I said a beautiful wave, and my hand went like in slow motion. That was the validation. That was the expression on the surface of exactly what is happening, saying, yes, this is an actual real thing. This is a real thing. And it is our relationship with each other, our relationship with ourself, basically. It's a self divine dialogue. It's divinity self-expressing that's making that happen. Beautiful. Whew. Okay. I want to get through all the questions. So let's see. That last question was past life. Okay, this is another question. Another question from Europe. My experience is that during the webinars, they make me more aware of the subtle realms of creation. Oh, hey, just in time. That's what we were just talking about. Yay. Especially during the sessions. And I also believe one could gain the ability to use that awareness of subtle realms for energy healing. But I perceive only maybe some part of it. I believe with attention, we could open up more. And she hasn't had time to give it a lot of attention because time seems short to manage everything, because she's thinking, well, you know, she starts to put her attention on the subtle realms, and then her awareness like spreads out to the town, first her neighborhood, and then the whole town, and then the whole world. And it's like, oh, overwhelming. And like, where do you even start, right? Where do you start making sense or order out of that chaos? So she thinks maybe it's more difficult than when one is more in a serene place like Fairfield. Oh, darling, thank you. Or in a community of meditators. That's very sweet. I wonder how it's best to proceed. And with the webinars, I often don't get to take in the Friday session. And it seems that the Saturday session builds off the Friday session. So she's wishing she could do both. And all I can say about that is we have tried to organize it so we can catch all the time zones on Earth. So the Friday evening allows people on the Pacific Rim to watch the webinar on Saturday morning. And then the one on this morning on Saturday morning allows for comfortable viewing in Europe, Middle East, and Africa, like that. So, but thank you for the question. And regarding subtle realms of creation, my feeling is it's very important that we approach this process, this aspect, with great care. Because there are several reasons. I have seen in my years of energy work, people who explore so deeply into subtle realms of creation that they are more in the subtle realms of creation than they are in this realm. And that can be a problem. I mean, it can be a deadly problem. Because if you die in one of those realms, you die over here too. That happens. So my feeling is that we need to work with subtle realms of creation at the same time as having great integration in this realm and in this body, and use our consciousness from a witnessing perspective to look into the realms in a way that allows us to maintain our grounding and our stability in this field. And that I really am not advocate of out-of-body experiences. I'm not an advocate of going so deeply into the subtle realms that we lose connect with this one. Not an advocate of channeling, of letting beings from the other realms come in and hang out in this body. It's really probably better to stay grounded in your body, to stay integrated in your body. It's very important. Okay, but that said, it's also important for us to evolve the flexibility of consciousness to be able to go in and extract whatever information is necessary and get back over here. In other words, get the information that's necessary while still remaining grounded in the self. That's why we've done a lot of grounding work in today's life healing webinar. And the thing about the various realms of creation is that you can bring them to you by invoking them. It's a matter of just putting attention on them. When you put the attention, like yesterday, we did a long session near the center sun. And we really looked in detail at the energies that are in around that source of creation area, that luminous center of our whole multiverse. And what we found was that the energies over there, the realms or the locations near the center sun, are extremely supportive of the healing process. And we can multiply the effectiveness of our own healing potential by locating awareness in that space. It's a very heavenly space. It's a very beautiful, safe space. It's a safe space. So invoking by putting attention. And the way we evolve the capacity to work with those heavenly spaces is by practicing, putting the attention, but not to the point of losing sensory contact with this realm. We want to stay here in our senses. We want to stay with the body, because really we're doing it to heal this body. So may as well. What we want to do is we just want to make the connection and then let the blessings from those locations where laws of nature are very lively and very powerful for healing come and sit with the physiology. I hope that makes sense. I hope I answered that sufficiently. I feel as if there's really a lot more that can be done with this area, but I expect we'll probably go into, we could probably do a whole webinar just on realms of creation. So note to self, note to my team, that would be a nice thing to do. Okay, so that was from there. So then we'll go back to a local question. Is this point of global communication corresponding to global consciousness? Because the collective consciousness has been manifesting, pulling the non-self to keep up with the self expanding to the global collective. So in other words, what this person's saying is that as more and more humans are being born on Earth, then each person's, this is what I believe, let me know if this is wrong, is each person's connection with Source. It means there are more and more and more connections with Source all over the whole world. So for everyone, we've started with self-referral, and then the collective consciousness is aware of itself and wants to heal from the collective level. So yes, when we bring our awareness down to the subtle levels of our own field of consciousness, we are literally healing ourselves and healing the collective at the same time. And so that's definitely the area where the overlap between individuality and collective becomes very abstract, and it's really not, in my opinion, it's not possible to determine where I begin and the collective ends, because really it's a continuum, and so it doesn't really. There isn't me ending in the collective beginning or vice versa. And it's interesting that the part of the body that belly mahamarma that we use to go into the fine levels of the fine fabrics of the physiology, that level of intelligence processes that level of connection. That there is where we have the microbiome of the body as well, which is also a collective, which also experiences us, and we experience our microbiome as like, where do I end and my microbiome begins, really? You know, because it's all self-referral, and it's all helping itself. It's all a big healing that's taking place. It's all a big self-support system, basically, So how can I say, well, if my microbiome goes to work for me to support my immune system function, is it not part of my own intention because I want it to be well? And the answer is yes. So we have the collective consciousness, which we access in ourselves at the fine levels of manifestation. Then we have an even bigger collective consciousness, which is also part of this healing, which is at the Saguna Brahm level of self, which is the whole celestial hosts of creation, all the devas and the angels and all the beings of creation. And so that's also self. And then we get to Nirguna Brahm, totality. That's also self. So we have degrees of collective self, degrees of collective self. And they're all valid aspects of self. And one of the principles of energy healing is that we go in through the energy healing process and we familiarize ourselves and integrate. Yesterday also, there was a lot of integrative work. That was kind of the theme, I think, of yesterday's healing, was integrating at all these different levels of collective and individuality. Thank you. Beautiful question. All right. Here's another. This question is amazing. I really had to think about this very interesting question. Oh, wait. Oh, we'll do one up here. We'll do one that's coming here. Then we'll go to that question that came in. New question. Oh, wait. Okay. Sometimes I get this shooting pain in the soles of my feet and always wondering if it's something to do with earth energy coming up into me. Then it turns into a buzzing feeling through my whole body. Definitely the feet are places where we receive information. The whole body is a big sensitive organ. So I would say, yes, you are receiving cosmic information. And when I say cosmic, I mean that through the earth, we connect to our physical cosmos, basically. So when the information comes in like that, it's definitely possible. I mean, it could be that the way the body is interpreting that energy experience is it's interpreting it as like a signal or a sign. Anytime there's pain in the body, basically that's the body giving you a sign. You need to pay attention to something here. This is important. Pain draws the attention in so we can really look at it. But it's good to have a lot of good energy in the body. And if you're feeling a nice buzzing feeling, nice earthy energy buzzing through the body, I would say it's a great experience. Thank you, darling. And so I think I'm going to go to another, because we've got like 11, 12 questions down here. So a new question. The other one is okay to leave out for now. My question about the most important art of self-loving you could speak on for a little while. That's a really key question, because I'm already looking a little bit ahead to the next webinar. And what I've noticed is that the capacity to self-love is essential for effective healing. The more we're able to flow love to our own self, the better we're able to engage our own healing capacity, the more we're able to feel and accept our own love. So it's very, very important. And I have a nice little free healing for self-love on my website. And I say little, but let me tell you, it's actually a really important healing. It's easy and it only takes a few seconds to practice, but the effects are profound and cumulative and amazing. And in a nutshell, what the healing is we close the eyes and bring awareness into the sacred inner sanctum of the self. And from there, hold oneself in a deep, loving embrace. If you do this, you might even feel yourself as both the beloved and the lover, just the one who hugs and the one who is being hugged. Notice how sweet your love is. It means so much to be loved by someone who knows you and who knows you better. So being loved by oneself is the most precious love. It's the most beautiful love. Nobody knows what you want at any given moment as an expression of that love better than you do. Sometimes we want alone time, but sometimes we want a word of inspiration or a kiss or whatever. So what you need. And notice as you're doing this exercise and holding yourself in a big hug, how it feels physically. It's the same as having a big hug from another person. All kinds of endorphins and serotonin and pheromones and hormones start to flow through the body, really life-giving, nourishing, life-supporting, body-supporting neurochemistry rises up in the physiology when we do this exercise. It's bliss. You can create bliss in your body in a moment with this exercise. All right, let's open our eyes. So notice now that we have our eyes open and we're not doing the exercise anymore, that all that nice neurochemistry is still moving in the body. So you can see how this exercise could have a cumulative effect. Yesterday, we were talking about long-term healing effects, and I mentioned that at night, it's a good time to start off as you're falling asleep, doing a little healing for yourself, and you'll find that that healing process continues through the night. When I first discovered this exercise, I was doing it all night long, every night, just curled up in my little fetal position, you know, and just showering love into my body and showering love into my body. And that eventually morphed into the exercise which I gave yesterday. So be sure to go back and pick up that one about the healing light from the source of creation. Because that self-love, at some point the mind settles down, right? And one realizes, I am my individuality, but I'm also this infinite being. And when the love starts to flow, infinite being to its antenna like that, then it multiplies out to infinity, becomes very, very intense and very wonderful and extremely revitalizing to the physiology, extremely strengthening to the immune system, to the digestive system, to the nervous system, all the systems. All right, great question. Okay, now I think I'm going to this question that came in on the email. If we are charged both with surrendering to nature and with taking charge of our universe as healers, how do we discriminate between what is balancing but feels terrible and what is not balancing or evolutionary but feels good? It's a short question, but it's got a lot in it, doesn't it? Wow, this man really, really thought about this. So, or maybe he's just quick. I think he's actually ultra fast, and it just kind of blurbled out of him, you know, it's an amazing question. So let's take the first part of the question. If we are charged both with surrendering to nature and taking charge of our universe as healers, that seems like a paradox from the beginning. Surrendering to nature is also, they seem like two different things, especially the way the question is worded, but I think they're really not different things. That ultimately the energy healing process is founded on the ability to be the instrument that supports nature's healing potential flowing through your physiology. So the taking charge of our universe as healers is integrated with the experience of finding that point of balance, connecting in with cosmic intelligence, and allowing the divine dialogue to run itself in the most intelligent and concise and efficient way. Because the divine dialogue is basically, it's the process of transformation that we as humans go through, basically. So all of our life experience is sort of summed up in that little term that I've coined for that experience, the breaking down of the old and the reemergence of the new. So this taking charge by both surrendering, but also kind of mastering the healing process, it's really the same thing, that the actual master does if you've ever listened to someone who's great, right? Like a great musician or a great dancer or a great anything, speaker, anything, they do it effortlessly. There's an element of having let go. There's an element of having, like I play the flute, of having played that riff so many times that when it comes time to do it, there's no, the self is surrendered to it. The mind just says, oh, that little packet. And then the packet rolls out the muscle memory out of the fingers, like nothing. So that's the whole premise behind this. Oh my gosh, I have an emergency on my hands. Chaos is overtaking me. What do? I go back to my center. I go back to wholeness. Because from wholeness, then I can make the best possible choices and I can make the strongest possible moves to abate that chaos. And that is a kind of surrender. And when I say I can make, I mean being makes. Your healing potential, your healing team. We get used to it like getting to know your family, you know? The healing potential for each person is slightly different. And we get to know those aspects of our own healing potential that are most resonant with our consciousness. That's why some healers do, like they kind of specialize in ancestral work, and other healers specialize in hands-on work, and other healers specialize in past life regression work and so forth. You know, it's good to, the individual naturally you can heal through any channel basically, because the whole system is like a big fractal, everything's connected. So if there's an imbalance, you can start by, well, let's see if we could, how the ancestors are doing with it. And so you peel off a few layers there. Well, let's see how past life is doing. Peel off a few more layers there. Well, let's see if there are any discordant feelings stuck in there. Peel off a few more layers there and so forth. So we want to run the energy healing process like a master musician who knows all the scales and who knows all the fingerings and who isn't bound by position 1, position 2, position 3, but can go to position 1.5 if they need to, right? So anyway, that's my answer to that. Thank you for the beautiful question. Quite amazing. And as we're doing that, one of the things that's happening for everybody's physiologies is in the relationship between conscious mind and the healing potential, the healing capacity, this lovely unguent, lovely oily energy, light medicine is moving into that area to kind of soften everything up and to facilitate the flow of communication between individual conscious mind self who says, hey, there's a part of my body hurting, I need to do something, and the part of the self that has all the answers and all the resources and all the capability to transform the physiology so there's no more pain there. And one of the things I'm seeing is that there's a kind of a connection being made between the Mahamarma of the belly and the Mahamarma of the heart. Because somehow in the relationship, it's like creating chords. You know, if you have one note, that's good. But if you have two notes and they're harmonious, that's even better. So there's a sort of natural way in which the heart coordinates with the Mahamarma of the belly, which, as I've mentioned several times now in this webinar, is our sort of connecting point into our healing potential, and the heart's ability as a balance point between the head and all the energies that go toward the relative. So the heart sits between, right? It sits between those 2 points. So right there, the heart is able to resonate an energy frequency which is not exactly the same as what's coming in at the gut level, but is complementary in such a way that it's like we're creating integration is occurring between the gut and heart area, and it's supporting the capacity to apply the healing capabilities at a relative level more efficiently, more masterfully. Very nice, very nice, very nice. For some people, a lot of discordant feeling is clearing out of that area too. Very nice. And for other people, fear is clearing. I think sometimes people are afraid of being too powerful. They're afraid of power. It's not uncommon. Particularly timing is an issue, because in this day and age, if I pulled out an old Polaroid camera and took a picture, everyone would be like, oh, that's just old fashioned. But if I appeared somewhere in the Middle Ages and pulled out a Polaroid camera, I could get burned at the stake, man. because right? Because it's like, what the heck magic is that? So this is the thing, is that a beautiful point was made last night by one of the participants of this webinar, and that was that the ability to transcend, for those who are familiar with the transcending process, the ability to transcend stabilizes the experience of omnipresence, right? Mind is caught up in the boundaries of the limitations of a thought, and it goes down into the field of silence, and boom, infinity. We experience omnipresence. But the applications that arise from that experience give rise to omnipotence. And essentially, that is what we're talking about when we're talking about energy healing, is now how do I use the fact that I've got access to infinity to create conditions in my own being that allows me to support a level of experience that is absolutely life-giving in every conceivable way. It's absolutely wonderful. So we're doing it. We're working with it. It's a big thing. It's a big complex area. Okay, so I did that one. Now I'm going back to this one. So, Anonymous, would you explain what is the center sun? Is it physical or not? It is not. I had to look. I hadn't really thought about it. I've always addressed the center sun from an energy level, but my experience is that it's very, very abstract. And you could say it's physical in that at this point it's everything. So you could say right now, in this moment in creation, that energy that is the center sun has dispersed and has become all of this manifest creation. So in that sense, but the center sun, as we understand it, as we can work with it through energy healing, is not physical. It is that brightest, brilliant, searing light of being as it first emerged from total collapse of silence into its own nature. So it's an energy structure, and we access it through same way we access the realms of creation, just by invoking it, by putting attention on it. And I'm not going to go into a huge elaboration on that because we still have a couple more questions and we're close to our moments, our hours, but I would like to say that I did go into a lot more detail on it on Friday's session. So you will get those recordings and you can check that out. Is it true that when we are transcending, we are going through fine realms of creation? Absolutely. Absolutely. And with the TM technique, for those who are familiar, the mind settles down like that and transcends thought. But with some of the advanced techniques, it goes more slowly, and then the individual experiences what that layer of manifestation is about and what the next layer of manifestation is about, like that. Beautiful question. Second question, our healing potential depends on what? What is the difference between us on the level of consciousness? Fabulous question. So I feel as if the healing potential, the differences from one person to another, has more to do with just personal preference. I think some people feel more at home working with their heart. Some people are very heart-centric, right? So when they do healing, it just feels right to do, healing connected and associated with giving love, pouring love into parts of the physiology, whereas other people are more visual. And so it's easier for them to do self-healing based on visualizing what it is that they want to effect that they want to produce in their bodies. And my suggestion to everyone is that we want to ultimately work our healing potential, like I said before, like an instrument. We want to become good at all the different ways that we can direct attention, all the different modes of attention that we can produce that will have supportive effect for the physiology. But everybody starts out somewhere. And of course, until we've become 100% fully enlightened or to the end of our journey as humans or whatever, until that happens, we're working with the strengths that we have, and then we're working to evolve or develop the areas that we don't have as much. So yeah, that's my approach to that question. And we've come to our time. So I'm not gonna answer any more questions, but I think I'm pretty close to got through most of them. At least every person got their question answered. Not everyone got all of their questions because some people put in several questions. But thank you for being with me. I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful for all the really amazingly intelligent questions that came in. And I was really impressed this time at how much more profound and expressive of deeper understanding the questions were than the last time. It means that you guys are evolving. You're understanding more, and you're able to formulate questions that are more abstract. And also the healing work we did was really wonderful. I feel like thank you, dears. Thank you to everyone. Yeah, I feel like the work that we did was really important in this particular webinar to support everyone's ability to be even better healers. Thank you. Thank you. I love you. Thanks for all the adorable wishes coming in. I love you guys. So I'm going to say goodbye. Thank you to everyone's beautiful healing potential, everyone's team of angels and support team of fine Saguna Brahm, level of self. Yes, I love you all very much. And it's a huge privilege and pleasure to hang out with you guys and your healing teams. And I'm looking forward to doing it again in about 3 weeks. And so we'll keep you informed. I may be doing something free for the holidays too. I'd like to do something like that. Thank you so much for being with me. My love to everyone.